The empty bowl. The alien mother sat quietly in the corner of a broken hut, her thin hands shaking as she held an empty wooden bowl. The wind outside howled across the barren fields, carrying only dust and silence. Her child, small and weak, pulled on her arm, his eyes wide and full of hunger. He whispered in a tired voice, "Mama, is there food today?" The mother's heart broke, because she had nothing left to give. For many weeks the village had faced famine. The rivers had dried, the crops had turned to ash, and the sky offered no rain. Every family had lost hope. Some had already lost lives. The mother had tried everything, searching in the forest, begging the elders, even giving away her own share to keep her child alive. But now, there was only one bite left, a small dry piece of bread, hard and tasteless. It was not enough for both of them. It was not even enough for one. She looked at the bread, then at her child. Her body trembled with weakness. Her stomach screamed for food, but her love was stronger. Slowly, she lifted the bread and pressed it into her child's tiny hands. "Eat, my little one," she said softly, her voice weak but steady. The boy shook his head. "But Mama, you need it too." The mother smiled, though tears filled her eyes. "No, my child, a mother always eats last," she whispered. The boy chewed slowly, tears running down his cheeks, because he knew she was starving. She stroked his hair and rocked him in her arms, pretending she was not hungry, pretending she was strong. But her eyes grew heavy, her body swayed as though she might collapse at any moment. Outside, the village was silent, broken houses, empty streets, and no laughter. The elders sat in the center, waiting for death. Children lay on the ground, too weak to run, too weak to cry. The once bright village was now nothing but shadows and sorrow. The mother thought of the past, when her people had fields of green, when harvest songs filled the air, when children ran freely without fear of hunger. But that world felt like a dream, a memory slipping away. Now there was only despair. That night, the mother wrapped her child in a thin cloth and stepped outside. The moon was pale, casting silver light across the dead land. She walked to the edge of the forest, her body weak but her will unbroken. She told herself she must keep searching, she must keep trying, even if she had no strength left. Her child clung to her side, shivering from the cold. Then, in the soft soil near the trees, she saw something strange. A mark in the ground, large and deep, not like any animal track she had seen before. She bent down, touching the footprint. It was heavy, clear, and human. Her eyes widened, her heart raced. A human had been here, a stranger from the stars. Fear and hope fought inside her chest. Humans were said to be dangerous, to eat flesh, to fight without mercy. But humans also carried food, tools, fire, and knowledge. If a human was nearby, maybe, just maybe, her child could live another day. The thought was enough to make her heart beat faster. She followed the prints carefully, moving deeper into the forest. Every step was heavy. Her legs felt like stone, but she did not stop. Her child looked at her with wide eyes. "Mama, are we going to find food?" She did not answer. She only whispered, "Stay close to me." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to sound strong. The air grew warmer as she moved forward. Then she saw a faint orange glow between the trees. She froze, holding her breath. It was fire, the fire of a camp. Her child gasped softly, "Mama, someone is there." The mother's heart pounded. She crept closer, her eyes searching through the branches. There, sitting near the flames, was a human. He was cooking something over the fire. The smell of food drifted through the air, rich and warm. The alien mother's stomach twisted with hunger. Her mouth watered. Her body begged her to step forward. But fear held her back. The child tugged her arm, whispering, "Mama, is he dangerous?" She looked at the human again, his strong hands turning the food, his face calm in the firelight. He looked powerful, yet not cruel. Her heart wavered between terror and desperation. If she begged him, maybe he would share. If she stayed silent, her child might starve. Her knees shook as she clutched her child's hand. In that moment, she felt the weight of every choice. The hunger in her stomach, the fear in her chest, the love in her soul. She took a deep breath, and with trembling steps, she moved out of the shadows toward the human fire. The stranger in the woods. The mother stood at the edge of the firelight, her body trembling as shadows danced across her face. The human sat with his back against a tree, his campfire glowing bright, the smell of cooked food drifting like a sweet promise through the night air. For a long moment she could not move. Her fear and her hunger were fighting inside her like two beasts. Her child pressed closer, whispering, "Mama, please, I am so hungry." Her heart tightened. She had to decide now. She took one careful step forward. A dry branch snapped under her foot. The human's head lifted instantly, his eyes sharp, scanning the darkness. The mother froze, clutching her child tightly, her breath caught in her throat. The human stood slowly, his tall figure outlined by the flames. He did not reach for a weapon, but his silence was heavier than any blade. The mother bent her knees and lowered her head, her voice breaking as she called out. "Please, do not harm us," she whispered. "We are only hungry." The human's eyes narrowed, his face unreadable. He took one step closer, the firelight catching the lines of his face. The mother's body shook. She pulled her child behind her like a shield, yet she did not run. "Why do you follow me?" the human asked at last, his voice deep and calm. The mother swallowed, her throat dry. I saw your fire. I smelled food." Her words came out like a sob. "My child is starving. I have nothing left to give him." The boy peeked out from behind her, his small eyes wide and afraid. The human's gaze lingered on the boy, then returned to the mother. He pointed to the pot above the fire, steam rising into the night. "You think I will feed you?" he asked, his tone half curious, half cold. The mother lowered her head until her forehead touched the dirt. "I beg you, I will do anything," she whispered. "Take my labor, take my strength, take even my life, but let my child eat." Her voice cracked. Tears fell on the dry ground. The forest was silent. The flames popped and hissed. The human did not answer immediately. He simply watched. His face betrayed no anger, no kindness, only thought. The child pressed his face into his mother's side, whispering, "Mama, he will hurt us." But the mother shook her head gently. "No, my child. If he wished to hurt us, he already would have." The human finally spoke again, his voice quieter. "You gave him the last bite, didn't you?" The mother's head rose slowly, confusion in her eyes. He pointed to her thin frame, her shaking hands, her hollow cheeks. "You are starving more than him," he said, "yet you gave him everything." The mother nodded weakly. "Because a mother always eats last." The words hung in the night, soft yet powerful. The human's eyes flickered with something strange, something not cruel, something thoughtful. He looked down at his fire, then back at the mother. For a moment it seemed like he wanted to speak, but instead he turned away, sitting back near the flames. The mother did not know what this silence meant, whether it was rejection or mercy. Her child whimpered softly, clutching her arm. Her body swayed with weakness, but her spirit refused to break. She waited, her eyes locked on the food, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. The human stirred the pot slowly, the scent filling the night air stronger than before. The mother bit her lip until it bled. She dared not move closer without permission. Then the human raised his hand and pointed to the fire. "Sit," he said simply, his voice low but firm. The mother blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Sit, before you fall," the human repeated, his eyes steady on her. Tears blurred her vision. Her knees buckled, and she guided her child toward the warmth of the fire. The child gasped as the heat touched his cold skin, his eyes shining with hope. The mother sat beside him, her hands trembling, unsure whether this was a gift or a test. The human leaned forward, his eyes still fixed on her. "Do not mistake kindness for weakness," he said, his tone sharp but not unkind. "I will feed your child, but first, tell me, why should I trust you?" The mother's lips parted, her breath shaky. She knew this was her only chance. Every word mattered. She straightened her back, her eyes meeting his. "Because I have nothing left," she whispered. "Only truth, only my child, only hope." Her voice cracked again, but her spirit glowed like a small flame in the dark. The human studied her for a long moment, the night silent around them. Then, slowly, he reached into the pot, pulling out a piece of steaming food. He handed it not to the mother, but to the child. The boy stared at it in disbelief, then at his mother. The mother's heart stopped. Her breath caught. Was this real? The child bit into the food, tears running down his face. The mother watched, her own hunger screaming inside her, but her soul overwhelmed with relief. The human turned back to the fire, speaking quietly. Now, eat, and tell me your story. The bargain of hunger. The fire crackled as the boy finished the last bite, his small hands clutching the food as if it might disappear. The mother's eyes glistened with relief, but her body shook with weakness, her own hunger biting deeper with every breath. The human sat still, watching them with unreadable eyes, the shadows of the flames dancing across his face. He did not speak right away, letting silence fill the air, a silence heavy with unasked questions. The mother bowed her head, her voice breaking. Thank you, stranger. You have saved my child's life tonight. The human leaned closer, his sharp gaze fixed on her. Saved tonight, he repeated slowly. But what of tomorrow? The mother froze, her heart tightening. Tomorrow was a word she had not dared to dream of. Her world had been surviving from one bite to the next, one moment to the next. She swallowed hard, whispering, I will find a way. I will work. I will give anything. Only let him live another day. The human stirred the pot again, steam rising into the cold night air. His voice was calm but edged with steel. Anything? The mother's head snapped up, her eyes wide with fear. Her child clutched her arm, pressing close as if afraid the human might take her away. The human leaned back, folding his arms, his gaze steady and testing. Why should I give my food to strangers when you have nothing to offer in return? He asked. The mother's chest tightened, shame and desperation swirling inside her. Her voice trembled but did not break. I can work. I can carry wood, fetch water, clean your camp. I can serve you in any way. Her words spilled like water, raw and trembling. And if that is not enough, she whispered, then take my life, but spare my child. Her son gasped, clutching her tighter. Mama, no. But her eyes stayed on the human, fierce and determined. The fire popped loudly, as if the flames themselves reacted to her words. The human tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle. Your life means nothing if you are dead, he said coldly. What good is a servant who cannot stand? Her cheeks burned with humiliation, her hands shaking, but she forced herself to answer. Then take my loyalty, my trust, my soul if needed. I have nothing else. The human's expression flickered, a spark of something. Curiosity, maybe respect, passed through his eyes. He leaned forward, his voice quieter now. Why did you give him the last bite, when you were the one closer to death? The mother blinked, caught off guard by the question. Her throat tightened, but her answer came quickly, without thought. Because a mother always eats last, she whispered. My hunger does not matter, his life does. Her voice broke, but her gaze did not falter. The human sat back, silent once more, the firelight casting long shadows across his face. The mother's heart pounded. Had she said the right words, or sealed her fate? The child looked from the human to his mother, fear and hope mixing in his small eyes. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity, every second stretched thin with suspense. Finally, the human reached into the pot, pulling out another portion. This time he held it out toward the mother, his eyes never leaving hers. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled as she reached forward, but she hesitated. Her mind screamed that this could be a trick, that maybe he wanted to test her obedience. She froze halfway, her lips trembling. The human raised an eyebrow. You refuse food now? The mother shook her head quickly. No, I am afraid, she admitted. Her honesty spilled into the air like a wound, raw and open. The human's gaze softened for the first time, barely, like a crack in stone. He placed the food gently into her hands, his voice firm. Eat, or you will fall before dawn. The warmth of the food burned her palms, a gift she could hardly believe was real. Her child tugged at her arm, whispering, Mama, eat, please. Tears welled in her eyes as she finally took a small bite, the taste filling her mouth, heavy and warm. It was more than food. It was life. It was hope. She chewed slowly, her body shaking with every swallow. The human watched her, silent, but his eyes no longer looked cruel. There was something else there now, something like respect. When she finished, she bowed deeply, her voice steady. You have my life, my loyalty, my every breath from this night forward. The human said nothing, only leaned back and stared into the fire. The forest around them stayed quiet, as if the trees themselves were listening. The bargain was not sealed with words, but with hunger, with sacrifice, with trust. And deep inside, the mother wondered if this stranger was more than just a man. The gift of fire and bread. The fire burned low, its orange glow flickering across the forest floor. The mother sat close to her child, her body trembling but her stomach finally holding something after so many empty days. The boy leaned against her side, his small chest rising and falling slowly, drifting into sleep with food in his belly. For the first time in weeks, his face looked peaceful, not twisted in hunger. The mother stroked his hair, whispering silent thanks, though her eyes never left the human across the flames. The human sat still, silent, his sharp gaze fixed on them as if weighing their worth. He had given food, but he had not given trust. His hands rested on his knees, his back straight, his presence like a stone in the night, unshaken and heavy. The mother felt fear mix with gratitude, a storm inside her chest. She had been saved, but she was not yet safe. She cleared her throat, her voice low. "You have given us life tonight. Stranger, I cannot repay you, but I will serve you with all I am." The human did not answer. He reached forward instead, stirring the pot one last time before pulling out the last of the bread. He held it in his hand, breaking it into two pieces, one larger, one smaller. He placed the smaller piece carefully near the boy, and then held out the larger piece to the mother. Her breath caught, her eyes wide. She looked at the bread as if it were gold, but her hands refused to move. "What trap is this?" she whispered under her breath, her fear louder than her hunger. The human raised an eyebrow, his voice calm. "Trap? You think bread is a trap?" The mother lowered her gaze, ashamed. "Kindness is rare in my world. It is hard to believe." The human's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable. The boy stirred in his sleep, his tiny fingers reaching for the small piece of bread. He chewed in half-sleep, smiling faintly, unaware of the weight pressing down on his mother's heart. The mother's hands shook as she reached for the bread offered to her. Warmth spread through her fingers as she touched it. Her stomach growled, but still she hesitated. The human's eyes narrowed. "Eat," he said firmly. "Strength keeps you alive, suspicion will not." Tears blurred her vision as she finally lifted the bread to her lips. The taste filled her mouth, soft, warm, alive. It was not just food, it was memory. She remembered her own mother's hands baking bread in better days, the smell filling their home, the laughter of neighbors in the fields. Her heart ached, but also healed, for a moment. The human leaned back, staring into the fire, his voice carrying across the silence. "You cannot survive by waiting for others to feed you," he said slowly. "Tomorrow the hunger will return, unless you learn to fight it." The mother nodded, swallowing hard. "Then teach us, show us. We have lost everything, but we can learn again." Her words were quiet but strong, a plea and a promise at the same time. The human studied her face, his eyes searching for lies, but he found only desperation and truth. He gave a small nod, almost to himself. "We will see." The flames cracked louder, sending sparks into the dark. The mother wrapped her arms around her boy, pulling him close. Her heart whispered a prayer, not to the stars, not to fate, but to this stranger. Because tonight, he had given not only food, but fire, warmth, and a chance. The village was still suffering, she knew. The cries of the other children still echoed in her mind. Would this human help only her, or would he help them all? The thought twisted her stomach more than hunger ever could. Her people were dying, and she had found a miracle. Could she share it, or would it vanish if she tried? The human broke the silence again, his voice softer this time. "You carry the face of someone who has not slept in weeks," he said. "Rest, the fire will keep you safe tonight." The mother's lips parted in disbelief. Safe, the word felt like a dream. She lowered her head, whispering, "Thank you, not for me, but for him." Her child shifted in her arms, sleeping soundly, a small smile still on his lips. The mother closed her eyes, her body leaning toward the warmth of the flames. Her mind still wary, but her soul finally finding a sliver of peace. And as she drifted, her last thought before sleep was not of death, but of tomorrow. For tomorrow might bring hope, and tomorrow might bring more than bread. The village of hunger. The morning sun rose weakly over the barren land, its light pale and thin, as if even the sky itself was starving. The mother woke to the warmth of the fire still burning low, her child curled against her chest, his face no longer twisted in hunger, but soft in sleep. For a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. Then reality struck her heart, the memory of her village, the cries of the children, the hollow eyes of the elders. Her people were still dying. The human packed his belongings with quiet precision, every movement calm, every action deliberate. The mother's heart pounded as she watched him. Would he simply walk away now, leaving her with nothing but a single night of mercy? She could not let that happen, not when others needed him too. Gathering her courage, she stood, bowing her head low, her voice steady though her hands trembled. "Stranger, please, come with us to my village. They need you. They need food. They need hope." The human looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Your village?" he asked slowly, his voice carrying no surprise but a heavy weight. She nodded quickly, her eyes burning with desperate truth. "Yes, there are children weaker than mine, mothers with no milk left, elders waiting only for death. If you walk away now, they will not last another day." Her child tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Mama, will he help them too?" She pressed her lips together, unable to promise what she did not know. The human was silent, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Finally, he spoke, "I did not come here to feed villages. I came for my own reasons." The mother's heart sank, her knees almost buckling, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Then take me as your servant, take me as your shadow, but please, walk with me back to them." Her voice broke, but her eyes glowed with fire. "If you could save one child, you can save many." For the first time, the human's gaze softened, not with pity, but with something deeper. Perhaps it was the memory of his own kind. Perhaps it was the strength in her plea. At last, he gave a single nod. "Show me the way." The mother fell to her knees, tears spilling onto the dirt, not from weakness but from relief. She whispered, "Thank you, stranger. You may not know, but today you have changed more than one life." The journey back was long, the land dry and cruel. The child stumbled often, but the human lifted him onto his shoulders without a word. The mother walked beside them, stealing glances at the human. His steps were strong, his eyes sharp, as though nothing in this world could break him. And for the first time, she felt the strange comfort of walking with someone who could carry more than fear. When they reached the village, silence greeted them. No laughter, no songs, only the quiet groans of the weak and the hollow stares of the dying. The elders gathered slowly, their faces lined with despair, their eyes narrowing at the sight of the human. One of them rasped, "Why have you brought a predator among us, daughter?" The mother bowed her head, her voice trembling. "Because he is not a predator, he is hope." The human opened his pack, pulling out what little he had left, dried rations, bread, a handful of fruit. He placed them on the ground without a word. The villagers gasped, some too weak to move closer, others too afraid to trust. The children stared with wide, hungry eyes, their mouths open but their voices silent. The mother urged softly, "He will not harm you. He has already saved us." Still, the elders were doubtful. One whispered, "Humans eat flesh. They cannot be trusted." The human's sharp gaze lifted to meet theirs, and his voice cut through the air. "If I wished to eat you, I would not bring bread." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of the boy chewing what was given to him. The villagers looked at one another, their fear shifting slowly into fragile hope. The human stood tall, his presence commanding. "I have little now," he said, "but food is not found in packs. It is found in the earth, in the hunt, in the fire." His words carried like thunder across the broken homes. The villagers listened, their hollow eyes slowly brightening. The mother placed her hand over her heart, whispering, "Teach us, and we will follow." The child's voice rose softly, filled with innocence. "Uncle, will you save us like you saved me?" The human paused, his gaze resting on the boy's small face. For the first time, he smiled, not wide, not soft, but real. "I will teach you to save yourselves," he said. "That is how you will never starve again." The villagers bowed their heads, some in disbelief, some in gratitude. The mother stood taller, her spirit no longer broken. In the heart of hunger, a spark had been lit. A stranger had walked into their shadows and brought not only food, but a path. Yet far beyond the hills, danger stirred, for news of this gift would not remain hidden forever. When kindness feeds many. The days that followed were unlike anything the village had known in years. The human did not simply hand out food. He taught, he showed, he built. He led the children to the forest and showed them how to set simple traps for small animals, not with cruelty, but with skill. He taught the mothers how to grind wild roots into flour, how to use herbs for strength, how to cook with fire that lasted through the night. And he led the elders to the dry fields, showing them how to dig deeper, how to find water hidden beneath the cracked earth. The villagers watched in awe, their fear slowly turning into respect. They had thought him only a predator, but he became something else, something greater. Every day the fires burned brighter, the pots filled heavier, and for the first time in years, the children laughed. The sound of laughter spread through the village like sunlight breaking the clouds. The mother watched it all, her heart swelling, her eyes following the human with quiet gratitude. Her son never left his side, walking behind him like a shadow, calling him uncle in a soft but proud voice. At first the human ignored the name, but one evening by the fire, he placed his hand gently on the boy's head and allowed it. The child's face glowed, and the mother's tears fell silently, for her child had found not just food, but someone to look up to. It was as if kindness itself had returned to their broken world, carried by this stranger from another race. Yet peace never comes without envy. Far beyond the village, across the dry hills, a warlord heard whispers of a human living among the starving. The warlord was cruel, his heart made of greed, his men fierce and hungry for power. He ruled by fear, taking whatever scraps remained from the weak, leaving only bones behind. When word reached him that a human had brought fire, bread, and hope to a dying village, his eyes burned with desire. If this human can feed them, then he can feed me, the warlord declared. And if he resists, I will break him. Back in the village, the human sensed the coming storm before anyone else. He sharpened sticks into spears, taught the men to stand in lines, taught the women to hide children quickly. He said little, but his actions carried weight, his every move preparing them for something darker than hunger. The mother noticed, her heart uneasy. "You expect danger," she whispered. The human nodded once, his eyes sharp. "When you build light, shadows always come." The villagers grew stronger under his guidance, but fear lingered at the edges. Could they truly defend themselves against warriors, when they had only known weakness and famine? The elders doubted, whispering among themselves, some saying the human would bring doom upon them, others saying he was their only chance. The mother stood firm, her voice rising above theirs. "He gave us food. He gave us fire. He gave us strength. Will you now abandon the one who made us stand?" Her words silenced them, for they could not deny the truth. One evening, as the sun bled red across the sky, the human sat by the fire with the boy on his lap. The boy looked up with wide eyes. "Uncle, will we always have food now?" The human's gaze softened, but his answer was steady. "You will, if you protect what you have built." The child nodded as if he understood more than his years should allow. The mother listened, her heart heavy, for she knew his words were not just teaching, but warning. That night, the villagers feasted on bread made from new flour, meat from their first successful hunt, and stew thick with roots and herbs. The firelight danced across their faces, once hollow but now full of life. They sang an old song, one that had not been heard in years, a song of survival. The human sat quietly, watching, his eyes distant, as though remembering another time, another place. The mother approached, bowing her head. "You have done more than feed us. You have given us tomorrow." He looked at her, his face unreadable, then spoke softly. "Tomorrow is never promised. Guard it with all you have." The words sank into her soul like iron. She knew something was coming, something greater than hunger, something that would test them all. Far away, under the dark sky, the warlord's army began its march. Their footsteps thundered across the earth, dust rising in heavy clouds. They carried blades, they carried chains, and in their hearts burned the greed for control. The mother, though she did not yet see them, felt the weight in her chest, a storm ready to break. And as the night deepened, the human stood at the edge of the village, his eyes scanning the horizon. For he knew that soon, hunger would not be their only enemy. From hunger to hope, the morning began with silence. But it was not the silence of peace, it was the silence of fear. The villagers stood in small groups, whispering, their eyes fixed on the horizon. The earth trembled softly beneath their feet, a distant rhythm growing louder. The human stood tall at the edge of the village, his spear in hand, his gaze steady. The mother clutched her child, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. Soon the warlord appeared, his army stretching across the dry hills like a dark wave. Their banners whipped in the wind, their armor glinting in the pale light. The villagers gasped, some stepping back, some dropping to their knees in despair. The warlord rode at the front, his eyes burning with greed, his voice booming across the land. So this is the village where a human hides. Bring him to me, and I will spare your lives. The elders trembled, fear twisting their faces. One whispered, if we give him, perhaps he will leave us alone. The mother stepped forward, her voice fierce. He fed your children. He gave you fire. And now you would throw him away? Her words struck like lightning, silencing the whispers. The boy clung to her leg, his small voice rising. Uncle is ours. He saved us. We will not let them take him. The villagers looked at one another, their fear colliding with their newfound courage. The warlord laughed, the sound cruel and sharp. Fools, he sneered. You defend prey as if he is king. I will take him, and I will take all you have built. He raised his hand, and his soldiers began to march. The human lifted his spear, his voice calm but strong. Stand, do not run. You are no longer weak. The villagers gripped their spears and sticks, their bodies trembling but their eyes fierce. The first clash shook the earth. The warlord's men charged, but the villagers fought back with fire in their hearts. They moved as the human had taught them, shields up, lines tight, voices loud. The mother grabbed a stone and hurled it, striking a soldier off his feet, her voice roaring. For our children, for our tomorrow. The boy hid behind the fire pit, clutching a stick, his small eyes burning with pride. The battle raged, dust rising, cries filling the air. The villagers bled, but they did not break. The human fought like a storm, his spear striking with precision, his movements sharp and unyielding. The warlord himself entered the fray, his blade heavy, his voice full of rage. You will serve me, human, or you will die. The human stood firm, his eyes cold. I serve no tyrant. Their weapons clashed, sparks flying, strength against strength, will against will. The villagers circled, shouting, striking, refusing to let fear rule them. The mother pushed forward, shielding her child with her own body, her eyes blazing with the same fire as the human's. At last, the human drove his spear into the ground before the warlord. The warlord stumbled, his men faltered, the villagers surged with renewed strength. Leave, the human's voice roared like thunder. This village stands, and no hunger, no tyrant, will break it again. The warlord's eyes widened, fear flickering where greed had once ruled. He pulled his men back, retreating into the dust, defeated not only by strength, but by unity. Silence fell, broken only by heavy breaths and the crackle of fire. The villagers looked around, their wounds bleeding, their hands trembling, but they were alive. They had fought, they had stood, they had won. The boy ran to the human, his arms wrapping around him tightly. Uncle, we are safe. The human's eyes softened, his hand resting on the boy's head. The mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. You gave us more than food. You gave us courage, she whispered. You gave us hope. The villagers gathered, bowing their heads, voices rising in one cry. Hope, hope, hope. The human looked at them, his face calm, but his heart stirred with something deep. He spoke slowly, his words like stone. Hunger is strong, but hope is stronger. Protect it, and you will never starve again. That night, the fires burned brighter than ever before. The villagers sang, children danced, and bread was shared freely. The mother held her child close, watching him laugh for the first time in years. Her heart swelled with gratitude, her spirit unbroken. And as the stars filled the sky, she knew their world had changed forever. For they had been starving shadows, but now they were something new. They were a people reborn, with strength, with fire, with hope. And it was all because one human chose not to walk away, but to share his bread. From hunger had risen unity, from fear had risen courage, from despair had risen tomorrow. And tomorrow was theirs to protect.